While I may not be the best at it, I've always been a massive fan of Mortal Kombat. I can still remember when I was a kid never even knowing about the fighting game genre until little 8-year-old me visited a relative of mine and played Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance on their PS2. The characters were all so amazing to me as a kid, and I adored the designs and powers of each one, the way each style contrasted and countered each other. And when they told me I could keep the disc, I was ecstatic. So much so that it became the thing I played the most, even getting my siblings into it. When I started learning more about the series as a whole, specifically getting Deception for the first time, there was something that I was immediately drawn to. I've always been fascinated by and adored duo characters, mostly playing Noob Smoke when I wasn't maining Shujinko for sentimental reasons. He was the main story character. I get very emotionally attached, okay? It's also funny to me how much I really adored Havoc, only learning years later that he was first intended to be an alternate skin for Noob before becoming his own character. Noob's black blood and shadow magic was such a cool addition to the game and instantly hooked my small mind as it was easily drawn to whatever seemed cool, and the robot he teamed with only made it better. And as I played Noob in later installments and learned how heavily he tied into the core story of the series, it only helped to strengthen my attachment to him. I'll be going over a bit of that today and hopefully explain just what it is that solidified him after each edition as one of my favorite characters in the game. Of course, to start talking about Noob, we need to look back to the early games. He was first introduced as a secret character in Mortal Kombat II, though canonically appeared before that as Elder Sub-Zero. But we aren't getting into that right now, as, to be honest, I don't feel I currently have enough knowledge and research to discuss a lot. Even going this far back took some work for me to look into, but if anyone is interested, I wouldn't be against doing a separate video on Sub-Zero. When doing a 2-player match and winning 50 times in a row, the player is challenged by Noob himself. From what I've learned, Noob's full name isn't actually Noob Saibot, which is something that surprised me when I found out. Ed Boon, the person who Noob was named after, actually revealed that the character is Noob, and Saibot is the name of the shadow that he summons. This is also likely why in games like Deception and Armageddon he's referred to as just Noob, since Saibot is absent while he partners with Smoke. He's just an Easter egg character here, being a colorless version of Scorpion with the ability to teleport and to throw Saibot out to tackle the enemy. I don't feel like there's too much to mention about him for a while into the game's history, so I'll skip around a bit.
Now Onaga has what he needs to shape the realms as he sees fit. I was the fool who brought him this power. Only I can destroy this threat, born of deception.
This is probably the most human iteration, with pale skin exposed under the pure black outfit he wears. It's also the moment when, from what I know, he was first given a story. In lore, the reason he partnered with Smoke is because he found the machine deactivated and was able to reprogram it to obey him. He shows a mastery of teamwork with how fluidly him and Saibot are able to flow together in combat in the later games, making it understandable how he's able to control Smoke so effortlessly. The two act almost as a single mind, able to time their attacks perfectly in line with each other, able to create openings for each other and finish each other's combos. Noob proves himself at every moment to be a flawless partner, weaving himself seamlessly into the action of his allies. With their mastery and strength together, the duo is even used as a gauntlet boss, always appearing in the game's ladder mode as the final challenge before facing off against the main antagonist of the game. 2-in-1 characters are fascinating to me, and I always enjoy finding more games that showcase them. and the way these two characters flow together so flawlessly is always fascinating to me and very entertaining to watch when you pull off their combos. It's no wonder with how effortless teamwork is for him that they made it a consistent part of his kit going forward. Another fascinating part about this being his partner in the game is that their stories actually end up tying back a while before Noob reprogrammed Smoke, though at the time there wasn't any direct connection between them, only origin. They were both members of the Lin Kuei, and they were both corrupted and twisted by the fate that the Lin Kuei led them down, giving a sort of poetic conclusion to them eventually finding each other and forming such a fluid bond. Noob was the former Sub-Zero before one day being killed. It's revealed in his ending cutscene in Deception that him and Sub-Zero are actually brothers and that he was killed by Scorpion and resurrected as a wraith. As for Smoke, he was eventually betrayed by his clan and turned into a cyborg as they delved into the art of nanotechnology. Both were kidnapped as children and stripped of their humanity and will, turned into thralls to serve others, both in a metaphorical sense and a very literal one after their deaths. And it was then, after the two died and had everything permanently taken, that they found each other. Now though, one ended up turning the other into their thrall. They could have bonded, found comfort in each other, but Noob went down another path. Teamwork and coordination is his greatest asset, and he would use his mastery of it to get revenge for his past. And Smoke would be the asset, whether he wants to or not. While not too much changed in Armageddon, there was one change. Taven, a demigod from Edenia, ended up setting Smoke free, and the two separated. The 9th Mortal Kombat game, also known as Mortal Kombat 2011, was a new era of the story, taking place in a separate timeline, literally beginning where the prior one left off. The game had a story that stretches over 2 hours and fleshed out a lot of characters, showcasing their backstories while also adding in small changes due to this being a new era and a new timeline. And while I could mention how Smoke plays into it, as he has a much more drastic alteration, I'll mostly be focusing on Noob and Saibot for this video. His first reference in the game is after Kung Lao impulsively jumps into a fight with Scorpion, who demands a challenge against Sub-Zero after winning. Yeah, if you don't know the roster of Mortal Kombat, a lot of this will go over your head, so feel free to skip around to parts where I talk about the gameplay. Raiden has a vision of Scorpion killing Sub-Zero, where Noob then flashes on screen for a moment, foreshadowing that his fate is coming closer and that the protagonists need to stop it. However, bargaining doesn't work. Quan Chi ends up creating a false reflection of Sub-Zero killing Scorpion's family, and he can't stop himself. He removes Sub-Zero's spine and presents it to the audience. An action with many consequences, but one that I am very glad to happen as it introduces Noob into the game's later story. After Kitana betrays Shao Kahn and gets imprisoned, Liu Kang and Kung Lao go to rescue her. And this is where Noob first appears. This time, his teamwork has become a lot more refined, as the entity he attacks you alongside isn't exactly another separate entity. Noob splits himself off, separating into two people, Noob and the Shadow Saibot. Saibot is a lot more interwoven as an ally, since the two don't swap in and out to carry each other's attacks. They are each other's attacks. Noob will be fighting you and landing combos, and in a split second he steps aside as Saibot lunges forward from his place, adding to the onslaught before fading away like he was never even there. The two have the same sense of cohesion that Noob had with Smoke, only now it's amplified as they don't just share a mind, they are physically connected. No one needs to jump in or jump out to complete each other. Instead, they are literally melded together and amplifying each other in the most literal sense possible. He appears for a few fights afterwards, mostly being a background character. He does have a bit of a bigger role later on when he helps Quan Chi create a Soulnado, a giant tornado made of human souls. Yeah, Mortal Kombat lore is one of those kinds of stories. This is the moment where Noob is reunited with the new Sub-Zero, who's also a robot now. I forgot to mention that part. After beating Sub-Zero, he gets thrown into the Soulnado and his soul gets destroyed. It's a bit of a shame that they couldn't do more with him in the story, reducing him to more of a cameo in this game. But from what I remember, this was the first movie-esque game they made, and they covered just about all they could fit of him into it. He was referenced in some of the pre-fight dialogue in the next game, Mortal Kombat X, but didn't really come back until Mortal Kombat 11. In the newest game, Noob appears to stop his past brother from tampering with the Cyberlinque. His soul was destroyed, but as a wraith, he wasn't really in need of one. On his return, he showcases a new mastery of teamwork and the pinnacle of his coordination with Saibot. The two are less a wraith and his shadow, with Saibot taking a much more active role this time. The two not only fight along with and complete each other, but when against a single opponent, they weave through each other. There's rarely a moment where you see Noob attacking where Saibot isn't jumping in as a compliment to him, and even in their win poses, the two are back to back, showing that they've grown inseparable. Postscript, I forgot to mention that in Mortal Kombat 11, when Noob wins a round, Saibot gives him uppies for their round win animation. These two are amazing. He's the character I typically gravitate towards in any of the games that he's in simply for his 2-in-1 function, but the perfection of his teamwork in this makes him even more fascinating to me. And this game specifically is what I believe to be the best iteration of him. This game also introduced the ability to swap out a character's powers for new ones to create a custom kit, allowing all characters, including him, to be adjusted to be easier to pick up and understand. You can have a build where you focus more on projectiles and ghost balls, or teleport around the arena. There's also scythe attacks, a weapon he had in previous games that now becomes a really good part of his kit. While there are builds that focus more heavily on Saibot, he's a major part of every build Noob uses. I couldn't have asked for anything to improve, and the seamless cohesion between him and Saibot honestly puts any of the most functional relationships I've seen to shame. He is absolutely perfect in every way. He doesn't appear much more in this game's story than in 9, but in the scenes that he does, it's a lot more interesting and enjoyable to watch. He's less of a background character and takes more of an antagonistic role, even having his own motivations aside from being controlled by Quan Chi. He assists Kronika, a time goddess who acts as the main villain, as she is creating a new timeline, a third timeline, and has promised him that in this one he will never have been killed. He opposes the heroes because he wants to save himself and go back to his past life. It might be messed up to say this, but I really hope he dies on the new timeline because Noob is a character I will never get tired of. And I hope at some point he gets his own key role as a main player in one of the future games. Seeing Noob and Saibot get more fleshed out, having their own ambitions, and a much heavier story relevance is the only thing that could possibly make me like them even more than I already do. If that does happen, I just hope it's a story just as fascinating as the duo. That's all I really have to say for now. I was originally gonna make this about duo characters in general, as they're something I really enjoy. I've been hoping that Lene and Lynette in Genshin Impact will be a similar concept when they release, but we'll have to see. Feel free to talk about any other character duos that you really like, or tropes and concepts that instantly draw you into a character in the comments. That's all for now.